Now let's go ahead and look at subsequences or sub-ranges of arrays. So let's go ahead and create a new array of nums and just put in some arbitrary numbers. 42, 15, 24, 95, 7, 125, and 1. So now we have this array of nums. And let's go ahead and create a new array. And we'll just do sub nums. And let's just say that we don't know how many are going to be in there. We're just going to create this array here. And let's say that we want to grab this range of numbers. So we want to grab from element 1 all the way up to element 4. So this will be 1, 2, and 3. So it'd actually be index 1 and index 3 there. We could do this if we know that we want to have 3 numbers. We could say is equal to new and then just say int square brackets 3. And then we could just say the naive way, we could say sub nums square brackets 0 is equal to num square brackets 1, 2, and 3. And then we would end up changing this there. And so this would be one way of doing this. This is kind of more the naive way, is we create this at that size and then we go through each one of those, which works, except what if you have 100 numbers you want to put in there? So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm going to leave the 3 there for now, but I mean, you could imagine that if you just create a new array of 100, you'll have to go through the exact same process. So the other way you could do this is for int I is equal to, and then whatever our start index is, 1. I is less than or equal to whatever our ending one will be. So this will be 0, 1, 2, 3. And I plus plus. And now we just do something like sub nums square brackets I minus 1, since we already know what that is nums I. So this will be I minus 1, so this will actually go to 0 and then go up to 3. Well, if we have 100 and we don't actually start at that number, let's say we start at 50, for instance, well, then we'd have to do I minus 50. Or we could go ahead and say int counter is equal to 0, and then we could just put counter here, and then counter plus plus. So that's another way we could actually do that. And this will populate subnums with a subset of, or a subsequence of numbers from there. C# has a much nicer way than doing this. So what we can go ahead and do is we can go ahead and say sub nums is equal to nums square brackets, and then we can give it a range. And this uses the dot dot. So 1 dot dot 3. So this will go from 1 up to 3, and actually we probably want to go 4. So this will go from index 1 up to, but not including, index 4. So that will be 1, 2, and 3 that will get put into subnums. So we can demonstrate this by actually printing it out. So we can say for int I is equal to 0, I is less than however many elements there are going to be in there, so less than 3, I plus plus, and then we'll just do console.writeLine sub num square brackets I. And so this should print out to the screen. This will print out 15, 24, and 95. So let's go ahead and run this. And 15, 24, and 95, because that is what we had put into subnums. So this dot dot tells it to do a range. And in fact, we can do a range of any sort of numbers. So let's say we want to go from the beginning up to 24. And so I'm going to go ahead and comment that out. Sub nums is equal to nums square brackets. And so we could put 0 dot dot 3 to then shift it by 1 over. But notice that the 0 is grayed out. it's a redundant value. You don't actually have to put the starting point there. You can just put nothing and then do ... 3. Now when we run this, we will get 42, 15, and 24 printed out to the console. And we can even go a little bit further. We can say, let's start at, since I'm doing a size of 3 here, well, and actually, we don't even need to put the 3 there. I know that's going to be 3, but we can go ahead and just create the subnums as a variable. We don't have to declare a size. And let's say I want to do those 3. So this will be from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, from index 4, all the way up to whatever. Now I know that it's actually 3. Let's go ahead and run this, and notice that we get 7, 125, and 1. What if I happen to actually go to 3? So now it will be those 4 values. Well, I would have to change this, but the nice thing about C# is there is actually a property on subnums and a member variable, which is length. So if you say dot length, that will give you the length of that particular array. So now if I run this, notice I get out 4 values. And notice I never actually said how big subnums is. So if I say, let's go ahead and start at element 1 and put all of those in there, it's going to happily put every single element in there except for 42. And in fact, if I put nothing there except for 2 dots, subnums will be the same length as nums with the same values in there. Notice that we have everything there, and it's actually creating a copy of that. Now, this is a lot of typing. So C# has something very similar to what Python has, and kind of the for with the auto range in C++, it's a for each. So if you do for each, you give it a type. A lot of times people put var there, but since we know that these are ints, we can go ahead and say int I, or in C++, you would put a colon there. Here you put in, and then you give it the array, subnums. And so this will go through every element in subnums, store it in I, and then you can do something with it. So we can go ahead and say, not subnums, I. So that will go through, that will grab the first element from subnums, put it in I, we're printing it out. The next iteration, it will grab the next element, which will be a 15, print it out, then it will grab 24, so on and so forth, until there is nothing left in subnums to grab. Notice that if I change this to a smaller range, let's go ahead and say 2 ... 4. So this will be elements 2 and 3, because again, it doesn't grab that 4th element, or the element at index 4. Notice that now it's for each, automatically knows that, hey, there's only 2 elements in there, and so it only has to grab 2 of those out there. We don't have to even look up the length of the particular array. So this is slicing, which is slicing in Python and other languages, but in C++ or C#, this is also known as ranges, and then you can do stuff on that. You can even store the range into a variable. So we can say range, let's say num range is equal to, give it some range, 2 ... 5, for instance. And so this is creating a variable num range. That is going to be a range of 2 to 5. And now here we can just say num range. And now everything will work fine. This will grab elements 2 through 4, well, up to 5, but not including 5. So that is an easy way that you can grab subsequences from an array and store it in another array there.